Computer-generated images to the world of millennials. Millennials, they're different, aren't they? They may not own a car in their lifetime. They may rent a car. They will buy fashion, but only if it's sustainable. And they have very distinctive payment, Venmo, Mint. So flying in from Australia, we have Nick, who's the CEO of Afterpay. He's going to give us the secrets of Down Under. So come on up, Nick. Now, Nick just flew in from Sydney, so please no math questions, right? Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. Nice to meet you. So, as was mentioned, so my name's Nick. I founded a business called Afterpay. My belief is that millennials are just simply misunderstood. So there's been a lot of social commentators who have said that millennials are driven by free food and beanbags, and that we're social media addicts who are hopelessly entitled because our parents have inadvertently destroyed us. So I'm 28. I'm like right in the middle of this millennial generation. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when we turned 18, when we became an adult, so in 2008, I just turned 18, there were some really key moments in the world that transitioned us and changed how we spend our money. So they turned us into the most responsible cohort that really has ever existed. And I think it's one of the most hidden components, and it's really impacting retail right now. So I'm excited to bring all of that to the surface. We've got some great statistics in the presentation. For some context, before I get stuck into it, so as was mentioned, I'm Australian. This is the Super Bowl, a Tourism Australia ad with my head perfectly photoshopped on Chris Hemsworth's body. The Tim Tams in the pack are from us, and you thank me later. They're great. But you know, it was funny. I walked into the San Francisco office the other day, and the whole team was eating Vegemite on toast. And then I came in, and it was a really hot day, and I was super excited. I was like, on the weekend, the weather was beautiful. It was odd for San Francisco. And I was really excited to tell the team that I'd finally, for the first time, wore my board shorts and thongs, not flip-flops. And everyone looked at me like, what is going on? You know, they're just cultural breakdowns sometimes, but I'm starting to learn. So my story is, I come from a retail background, so my family was in jewelry. I sold the most jewelry on eBay in Australia when I was 19 at university, when I was out of my bedroom. I then launched a US online retailer called ice.com into Australia, so that kind of taught me all about retail. And then to cut a really long story short, my neighbour at my parents' place was running one of the largest investment funds in the country, and we ended up building Afterpay together. So we raised our first round of money 3 years ago with 10 retailers and a couple thousand customers. We took the company public 9 months later. So not really normal. There's no real private money in Australia, so we listed the company. And then as of today, we have 16,500 retailers, bring live about 30 businesses a day, and we process 1 in 4 online fashion and beauty transactions. More than 10% of total online retail now comes through us. We went live here 2 months ago. We've already got 200 retailers live, so keeping in that kind of millennial vein, we went live with the Urban Outfitters group, so Urban, Anthropologie, and Free People, and we went live with Revolve last week. They were running this really cool Bermuda Revolve Summer after party. I definitely was not cool enough to crack an invite, so I didn't go. But it was great to see, you know, some of the best millennial brands in the country coming live with Afterpay. So what kind of led me down this path was in 2010, ice.com did something really special. Like, it was unknowingly special. I couldn't really figure out what it was, and I was trying to figure out how something, and if you look under the price, it says, I can't really see it from here, but it's kind of like $100 or 4 payments of $25. And I was like, how can something so simple be so powerful? And it came down to the core that in every regard, it was the opposite to finance. There was no 20 to 30% APR or interest. They were leveraging their existing payment options. It was tapping into this interesting trend that had come through with millennials from a result of us becoming an adult. And it was like, something so incredibly simple could be so powerful. It was almost half of their orders, drove a 50% higher lifetime value. And so from my perspective, it was, how can this go mainstream to really help retailers sell more product, but at the same time maintaining this millennial feel and not being finance? So in 2008, there was this defining moment for millennials when the recession hit. Coincidentally, I was actually here in New York on a family holiday. I'd just turned 18, and we were visiting Wall Street, it's not a lie. And what you saw through the media was there was parents losing their jobs. So straight up, it was this impact on many of our lives. And on the other side, the media was saying, be responsible, spend money that you have, learn lessons from this. And it has really reshaped how millennials spend their money. Millennials have a complete aversion towards credit. And so when there's probably two key components that have driven it. So you've got the recession, and then the other side is this student debt impact on society. So there's a few really interesting things in this graph. The first is if you look at 2008, the outstanding credit card balances actually started to fall. So credit card outstanding balances started to come backwards in 2008. And at the same time, outstanding student loans just grew perpetually to the point now where outstanding student debt is 50% higher than credit card debt. And so you've got this interesting kind of juxtaposition, because on one side, the media is saying, like, be responsible. And then on the other side, it's like, you have to take out this loan where in the short term, you can't see when you're going to be able to pay this back. And so there's this, I guess, inner debate within a millennial where they've got this compulsory debt to get an education, and then at the same time, every part of them is trying to drive away from this credit scenario. So there's now more outstanding student debt than there is credit card debt. And it's resulted that millennials are more scared of credit card debt than they are of dying. This was a CNBC segment that came through. I think there's, they're not literally more scared of debt than they are of dying, but it's a great statement. So it is really changing how people spend their money, and at a face level, you'd think that doesn't really impact retail, but at its core level, it absolutely does. So what has happened is that millennials prefer to spend money on debit cards than credit cards. 2 out of every 3 people aged 18 to 30 in the US do not own a credit card. 2 out of every 3 people 18 to 30 don't own a credit card. There's twice as many debit card transactions in the US than there are credit card transactions. So this 2008 financial crisis went on, and it was like, you should spend money that you have. And so this debit card growth has just really perpetually grown. And you can see it through this graph. So if you look at the top grey line, that's debit cards in the local market. So you can see the gap is just widening between debit card usage and credit card usage. And what we've seen through our data at Afterpay is that 85% of our customers use debit cards, not credit cards. So if you ask our customer, is Afterpay your line of credit? They're like, no, you don't get it. They're like, I'm spending my own money. I'm using my debit card. It's linking into my bank balance. It doesn't cost me anything extra. There's no interest. And I'm buying on a Wednesday because I got paid on a Wednesday. It's this mentality of budgeting. It's this subscription-driven mentality. And so you're seeing the widening between debit cards and credit cards because of the disposable income and impact that millennials are now bringing into retail. So if you modeled out the average spend of your debit card customer versus the average spend of your credit card customer, your debit card customer spends a lot less than your credit card customer. And so it's how do you bring that money back into retail, and 50% of income in 7 years' time is going to be earned by millennials. So we've just got a fundamental problem if we don't adapt to how they spend their money and give them similar tools that play into both their lifestyle and their revised spending habits based on, just ultimately when we grew up. So I invented this concept called Dilemmas. Dilemmas are millennial dilemmas. They're life's big little problems. They're real. So this one's great. It says there should be a millennial edition of Monopoly where everyone just walks around the board paying rent. No one actually buys anything. And so dilemmas are real, and we've grown up in a different society. Key moments have transitioned us to be different. And so when I look at the way we live, we've never experienced sustained periods of high unemployment. And actually the opposite was true, because when we came out of university, sure, there was like 12 months of it's difficult to get a job, but we got jobs pretty quickly. And actually we were a highly demanded resource because we came in at this perfect point of technology revolution where we were the early adopters. We were really sought after. We live for instantaneous gratification. So I've regularly been known on the way home from work in my Uber. I order Uber Eats while I'm in my Uber, and then it's like a race to get home. But really, it's like we do live for instantaneous gratifications. The products that we love, they're making life better. And so people, I think, confuse instantaneous gratification with just efficiency of life, and we live for that. We spend money responsibly, so as I've spoken about already, this whole debit card versus credit card trend really brings that to light. We're vocally loyal to brands which deserve our support. And I've got 2 case studies in here about 2 brands that have done it exceptionally well. You know, everyone says we're fickle and disloyal. I think actually the opposite's true. We're vocally loyal when people speak to us the way that we want to be spoken to and actually build a relationship that they care about. And the final thing is that, you know, we want to build a legacy. We want to get out of bed every morning with a purpose. And that sounds esoteric, but it's true. And deep in our core, you know, you can get great things out of millennials in the workforce. I mean, I see myself, in certain regards, I exhibit the bad behavior of millennials in the workforce, and then other times it's not. But when it's channeled in the right way, you know, we really will run through walls to make things happen. So this is a picture from our office in San Francisco. We were looking down because we heard this roar, and it was Kylie Jenner opening her new store, literally downstairs. There were hundreds of people. This wrapped around the block for like 400 meters, and Kylie got out of the car, and it was like we were at the NBA final. It was like insane. And I think this perfectly captures how someone who has, for a long period of time, built a personal relationship with no agenda, has built trust, and then turned into such a powerful force in the retail world. But it just absolutely blew us away. And then if you look at Supreme, so, you know, CFDA's award to Supreme last month, I think really captures that millennials are shifting, particularly fashion, in the US market. So you've got this element where their brand position is so purposeful, their collaborations are specific, you know, they're focused on their identity, and for them there's this purposeful scarcity, which really is, if they make a product that sells exceptionally well, they never produce it again. It's often actually very difficult to find out even how to buy the best products that Supreme make. And then it creates this kind of cult-like customer following on the flip side where the resale market is just exceptional. So, you know, what Supreme have done in terms of speaking and capturing the millennial mindshare has been like nothing short of phenomenal. And then when you look at Glossier, what I love about Glossier the most, if you go on social, it's quite specific in terms of how they speak to their customers. And there's a lot of feedback that happens on social through Glossier. They will ask their, I mean, they've only got 20 odd products, but they'll ask their customers before they produce anything. And there's this almost like collaborative co-creation of new product, to the point that when they produce that product, there's tens of thousands of people who join the wait list for it when it gets released because they feel like they created it. There's something really special when that comes through, when you have this millennial buys in. It's like, you know, the Kickstarter meets beauty. And it's subtle, but it's really important. So can the act of paying actually deliver a cult-like customer base? No one says, oh, I loved how I paid for that. Well, I've never said that, right? No one really cares how they pay for things. So can a payment product, you know, interact with millennials in such a particular way and engage from a retail perspective, their mindset and this complete shift in terms of a credit aversion? So the way our product works is if it's $80, through Afterpay you pay 4 payments of $20 every 2 weeks. So we charge the retailer a small fee, unlike traditional finance, which is built off making money from the customer. We've shifted that in favour of the customer, where we charge the retailer. In return, we pay next day and we take all of the risk. And the response in terms of this millennial lifestyle meets new payment habits has been, in all honesty, unintentional. I mean, it's been 3 years since we started, so it's been a pretty amazing ride. But it's created this cult. So our customers made these groups on Facebook called We Love Afterpay. Has 250,000 members combined. So 1% of the Australian population are part of these fan groups. Australia's a small place, so 250,000 is quite a big deal for us. But it's great to see this kind of advocacy flow through. And when you start to read customers who have engaged with us or with debit cards or other means through retail, you start to really learn about, clearly how these events when we became an adult have transitioned the world, and millennials particularly. So this is a customer email that I received. She sent me a note and she said, "This is a quick little email to let you know that you've helped me in so many ways this year. I've been able to get my kids new chairs for school, new shoes, computer parts, and a new car battery when there was no other way I could afford it, and I was in desperate need of one. A hard drive for my husband's computer so he could get through uni. All these things have only been made possible with your Afterpay service, so thank you. Also, my credit rating has improved as I haven't had to ask for loans. You've helped my family in more ways than you can know." And so it's pretty amazing when you build something and you try and engage a customer in a way that is unashamedly in their favour. And millennials are so well read. They're not stupid, right? They're not engaging with credit because it's misaligned with their interest. And so when you build something and you see how Supreme has reacted, you see how Glossier, you see how some of these influencers have now infiltrated retail, that to me is pretty amazing. And so in terms of just how that works, for us, it's all about driving incrementality. So if we can't prove that that debit card customer will spend more money with retailers through using Afterpay, we shouldn't exist as a company. Like that's our whole proposition. So within the first 24 hours in Australia, when we go live, we'll process a quarter of a retailer's transactions. We're almost half of MAC Cosmetics online transactions. We're live with Lululemon, Target, every single major brand in Australia we work with. And it's all about increasing conversion rate, increasing average order value. So it's human psychology to focus on the $20, not the 80. And then it's like, I'll buy 2 products, or I'll buy the shoes to go with my dress. And lastly, it's about maximizing full price. So we're in this kind of vicious cycle of discounting right now, whereas when you can engage in an installment product that's free, there's this perceived discount that comes with it. And as I mentioned before, Urban Outfitters went live with us just 6 weeks ago. Within the first 5 days, they saw more than a 30% uplift in in average order value compared to customers who didn't use Afterpay. So revenue per session was materially up. So for us, it's just about how can we work with the best retailers in the country to engage millennials, leverage that shift in wanting to be responsible, leverage that. It's funny, there's this kind of appreciation for a retailer when the customer realizes that they've offered something that's not finance and they're funding it on behalf of the retailer because it's absolutely in their favor. And so to me, just to kind of wrap up, there's been some amazing shifts in the world in the past 20 years. Millennials are absolutely coming into their perfect point of power. Retail will be driven over the next 5 years largely by what share of millennials they're able to obtain. They're spending money differently, they're living differently, they're unique, they're brash sometimes, but if you get it right, it's really powerful. And so I'm just excited to kind of shed that light, particularly on the shift away from credit towards debit, and why my belief of some of these things have occurred. And obviously, happy to answer any questions. So thanks, guys.
Are you looking at putting this into brick and mortar retail?
Yeah, so in Australia, we're now live with 10,000 shop fronts. So we work with all of our retailers. If you walk into a change room in Australia, on pretty much every mirror, there'll be like a sticker on a decal, and it'll be like, you deserve it, buy both, Afterpay it. And so they leverage it as a sales tool to help their team sell more product. We started online because that education is key to educate a customer base in terms of our product and how it works. And then we'll launch in-store shortly. So it's available and it will be a systematic rollout. The way it works is a customer gets a barcode on their phone. So it's like a gift card. And then the store rep just scans that barcode off the phone. And it's one API call that says, is this barcode number okay to make an order for this amount of money? Answers yes, and then the customer leaves with the product. So, 15% of our volume in Australia already comes offline, and it's growing substantially.
What's your presence in US?
Well, I'm here.
I see that.
I'm here.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So we're about 30 people here now. So we've built out kind of all core functions. We're 300 people globally. As I mentioned before, we've got 200 retailers, 400 contracted. So we're growing really. We went live 6 weeks ago, so we're scaling very quickly. But yeah, we've got a team on the ground, both East Coast, West Coast, sales, marketing, product, and tech. We're excited.
Are you concerned about PayPal and?
PayPal was very prominent in Australia when we went live. The millennial focus, I'm not sure, is the core. So what we've tried to do is bring that layer in. Everything we do is about retail, not about payments. Like, I'll never go out and say, hey, this is how you pay for something. It's all about the lifestyle and engaging them in a very different way. So I think there's places for different payment options in the market, but I feel we're solving this really niche but important component of retail.
The retailers use their store card as a rewards program, give points as an incentivized way for them to sign up for the cards because values them more. Have you guys looked into loyalty and a rewards point system across retailer at all?
Yeah, so our whole thing is that, and it's a really good question, it's what comes up a lot when people have private label credit cards. And so when we went into like David Jones and Myer, who are the 2 department stores in Australia, they're like, a core component of my business is my credit card, and it loops everything together. And the great thing that we do is we're not saying throw out your existing piece of plastic. Our customer can use the private label credit card through our platform like they would normally. So they can use their credit card, they can still earn all their points, but if they're spending more money, it's like a double win. So for us, it's just about being highly synergetic with those programs. We do find that 85% of our customers use debit cards, not credit cards, so there is a different consumer base, but in the event that the customer does want to use that, they absolutely can. And so guys, I'm happy to stay around after, answer any questions as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We're going to regroup here at 3:15, so take a break for a few minutes and come back.